Welcome back in lecture series on topic chemical thermodynamics. Today in this lecture, we will learn what is meant by spontaneous process and relation between energy and spontaneity of a chemical reaction. So let us see what is meant by spontaneous process. Spontaneous process means irreversible process. That means process or those processes which takes place of its own without any external help or external influence, then such processes are called spontaneous processes. So process that can take place of its own without external influence, such processes are spontaneous processes. That means all spontaneous processes are irreversible. All real or natural processes are spontaneous processes, or these are irreversible processes. For example, flow of water from higher level to lower level. Water flows from higher level to lower level, but reverse of this cannot take place without any external help. So this is a natural tendency, that is water flows from higher level to lower level. Or another example, that is rusting of iron. Rusting of iron is also a spontaneous process and it is a natural tendency. Whenever any iron article is exposed to air, that means when it comes in contact with oxygen in presence of moisture, then it gets rusted, or rusting of iron takes place. So it is a natural tendency, therefore it is a spontaneous process. But reverse of this process cannot take place. This process, rusting of iron, takes a long time. It is a slow process. But reverse of this process cannot take place. That means from rusted iron you cannot get a pure iron metal. So reverse of this is non-spontaneous process. Another example, that is melting of ice above 0 degree Celsius. So ice absorbs heat from the surrounding and melts. So that is a spontaneous process. It does not require any external help or an external force. Or when a cup of a hot coffee is placed in a room, then it cools down and after some time it attains the room temperature. But the coffee at room temperature, it will not absorb heat and get warmer of its own. So it is a spontaneous process. It is a natural tendency. That means hot coffee becomes cool, or it cools down when it is placed in a room or kept in a room. But cold coffee cannot become hot without any external help. Or another example, that is a reaction between acid and base. It is called as a neutralization reaction. When you mix NaOH, that is sodium hydroxide, and HCl, then neutralization reaction takes place. And it is also a spontaneous process. But when NaCl is dissolved in water, we cannot get NaOH and HCl. So reverse of this reaction cannot exist. Therefore these are what? Irreversible reaction, or spontaneous processes are irreversible processes, and all spontaneous processes are natural processes. So all natural processes are spontaneous and all spontaneous processes are irreversible processes. So main points or key points of spontaneous processes is, first is, it occurs, or these reactions occurs of its own and it does not require any external force to take place. For example, heat flow from hot to cold. Reverse of this cannot take place. Therefore, another point, that is, this flow is unidirectional. These processes proceeds in one direction. Another example, that is, see here, water flows spontaneously from higher level to lower level. That means all spontaneous processes proceeds in one direction and cannot take place in opposite direction unless external stimulant is present. The flow of water from lower level to higher level cannot take place of its own. The reverse reaction or opposite reaction in opposite direction cannot take place. From cold to hot is not possible. So, spontaneous processes proceeds in one direction, or these are unidirectional, and cannot take place in opposite direction unless external stimulant is present. Third point, that is, spontaneous processes can be rapid, that means fast, or slow. That means spontaneity is not concerned with the rate of the reaction, whether the reaction is fast or slow. For example, NaOH, when it reacts with mixed with HCl, it is a very fast process. Within seconds, this type of reaction takes place. But the rusting of iron is a slow process, and that is also a spontaneous process. So whether it is slow or fast, that is not matter. Spontaneous processes may be rapid or slow. It is not, spontaneity is not concerned with the rate of the reaction. And fourth point, that is, these reactions, that is spontaneous reaction, continues or proceeds till equilibrium is attained. For example, see here, the two bulbs are there and these are connected to each other with this stopcock, and when this stopcock is open, then this gas expand, and the expansion of gas is continued till the pressure in both the bulbs becomes same. Now in this, at the beginning, here this one bulb is evacuated and another bulb is filled with gas. And when this stopcock is open, then what happens? The gas enter from this bulb, B bulb, enter into A bulb, and this process is continue till equilibrium is attained. The pressure inside this bulb, or pressure of the gas inside this bulb, becomes same. Both bulb, when acquires 0.5 atmosphere pressure, then process is stopped. That means spontaneous processes continues till equilibrium is reached. So all these are the key points of spontaneous process. And spontaneous processes tends to occur, generally they have tendency to occur in a direction that leads to equilibrium, that attains what? Equilibrium. So processes that are spontaneous in one direction are non-spontaneous in reverse direction. That is also the important point which we have studied already. Now the next point, that is energy and spontaneity. For example, the reaction between NaOH and HCl. It is a neutralization reaction. When NaOH is mixed with HCl, then it gives you NaCl and water, salt and water. And during this reaction, minus 57 kilojoules, this much heat is evolved. So it is a spontaneous process. That means what? To takes place any reaction or the chemical reaction to takes place spontaneously, it is necessary that the product of the reaction must be stable than the reactant. Product must be stable than reactant. That means, and you know that stability of the substance is determined from its energy. If the substance has more energy, then it is less stable. And if the substance has less energy, then it is more stable. So naturally, in spontaneous reaction, the substance with more energy is converted into substance having less energy. That means what? The spontaneous processes takes place in a direction in which energy of the system is lowered. That means energy is released, and that means the process is exothermic. So we can say that all exothermic reactions are spontaneous from this example. See here the another example, that is melting of ice above 0 degree Celsius. When ice, that is water in a solid state above 0 degree Celsius, gets converted into water in a liquid state, then during this heat of reaction of this particular process is plus 6 kilojoules. That means ice absorb heat from the surrounding of its own and the melts. So absorption of heat from the surrounding takes place during this process, and as heat is absorbed, it is endothermic process and it is a spontaneous process. That means what? Exothermic reactions are spontaneous and some endothermic reactions are also spontaneous. See here the another example, that is sodium chloride dissolves in water spontaneously, and during this the sodium chloride in a solid state or during this reaction, or it is a 3.9 kilojoules heat is absorbed during this reaction. That is during the dissolution of sodium chloride. So here it is also endothermic reaction, but this reaction is spontaneous. NaCl, when it is added into water, it gets dissolved. So it is a spontaneous process. Though it is an endothermic, it is a spontaneous process. So, and these are what? All these example shows that what? The reaction may be exothermic or endothermic. The spontaneity you cannot determine, or energy is not the criteria for spontaneity of the reaction. So whether the heat is evolved or absorbed, or from the heat evolved or absorbed, you cannot decide whether that reaction is spontaneous or non-spontaneous. So the another factor, thermodynamic property, is responsible to determine the spontaneity of a reaction, and that factor or thermodynamic property which decides the spontaneity of chemical reaction is known as what? Entropy. And this, what is meant by entropy, that we will learn in the next lecture. So thank you.